everybody to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. To get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit, go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. It'll take you right there and hook you up with a little bit of extra money. If you put $2,000 in, it'll give you $3,000 to bet with. If you put $100 in, it'll give you $150. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, the former owner of the Orlando Apollos, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I'm heartbroken. The Alliance of American Football League is no longer in existence.
We watched it for a whole week, too.
It was actually not bad football. I mean, I didn't know anybody there, but it was not bad football. They had some rules that I thought the NFL should probably adopt.
And they might. They probably will over time because we've seen the NFL adopt rules from the old AFL, from the USFL, from the XFL. That's how you get the camera over top of the players now. But I guess they've...
What happened, Mike? What happened?
They suspended football operations Tuesday. The league told its players their termination date was April the 3rd, even though the AAF did leave open the possibility of a relaunch under new investment, which is not going to happen because nobody's dumb enough to do that again. The league lasted 8 weeks, and which begs the question to me, if this is indeed the end of the AAF, which it is, how and why did it fold so quickly? Because this was a league, because I'm involved with leagues like this. I coached indoor and arena football for a while, and what everybody kept telling me was, this league's legit because they've got enough money, and this is before Dundon ever bought in. They have enough money to last for 3 years. And they obviously didn't, because by week 2, they needed this Tom Dundon bozo to come in and bail them out with $250 million. And Dundon is the guy that owns the Carolina Hurricanes.
He owns the Carolina Hurricane Hockey League team.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have anything to do with the day-to-day operations. He's just the money man. And what it comes down to is he is the reason this league has folded. And also the reason the league folded is because they started it. Because it doesn't work. I mean, you had great TV ratings the week after the Super Bowl. And then it steadily declined until nobody even knew they were playing. Because the problem you get is, same thing indoor football. Usually your biggest crowd of the year is the first game. Even if you're playing in a championship game, your biggest crowd was that first game. Because most of these places, this is why you don't see a lot of arena or indoor football in places like Florida and California, because people would always rather go to the beach. And when you put this in a place like Memphis, there's other stuff to do when the weather gets nice. Plus, the NCAA tournament is going to destroy anything that gets in its way anyhow, Steve.
I agree. I mean, no, I'm not a proponent of out-of-season sports. I don't think they fly. I mean, there are seasons for everything. NASCAR is up and running now. Formula One's up and running. I know those are not your favorite sports. Baseball's up and running. There's a season, and everybody kind of gets those ingrained into their brains, and I just don't see football as a summer sport. And I always question why they try and do this and try and follow the NFL when people have been drained, by following their team and hoping their team makes the playoff, or a team gets in the playoff and then loses to the Patriots, which generally every team pretty much does every year. And I just don't see the logistics of this whole thing ever flying. What was the purpose of the AAF? Were they trying to be what we would call an NBA G League for the NFL? Is that what you think they went into it with, and why Dundon bought into this thing?
I think that's what Dundon wanted, if he even wanted us to succeed to begin with. And days before the AAF suspended football operations, Dundon told USA Today that he needed cooperation from the NFLPA in order to feed current NFL players into the league and maintain the AAF's viability. That's in Dundon's mind, at least. He said if the players' union is not going to give us young players, we can't be a developmental league. That is bullshit, because the thing is this: guys that are already on NFL rosters are already on NFL rosters. And if you're trying to put new guys on NFL rosters, it would make sense to me that it would be new guys, not guys that are on NFL rosters. I mean, currently, NFL players who sign future contracts at the end of a given season are allowed to play in the AAF, but the NFLPA has not agreed to budge, at least not as quickly as Dundon wanted, and allow NFL players. See, this is the thing. There's so many things here. The NFL does not need a feeder system because it has one in college football. It doesn't have to pay anything for college football. And there were serious concerns about the risk of lending NFL players to the AAF. I know that there was an official with the NFLPA that requested anonymity who basically said the pension said the players' union is founded on the belief that using active NFL players and practice squad members for the AAF would violate the terms of the collective bargaining agreement and the restrictions that prevent teams from holding mandatory workouts and practices throughout the offseason. You know, they've got limitations set in place designed to make sure that the players' safety is the main thing in mind. And you know, if you've got players who just went through an entire NFL season, not getting any time off, going right to the AAF, I mean, right there, if you're the NFL and you're lending them players, that means, that are already under contract. So those players right there are not allowed to have even, I mean, you're only allowed to have a certain amount of OTAs with teams, much less played another complete season. And then I think your problem would be, what happens if a player gets hurt? I mean, whose insurance pays for that? Because we already saw that the Orlando Apollos were having to practice in Georgia because they couldn't get workman's comp because they didn't have enough money to do it in the state of Florida. So
yeah,
the great thing about funding is this. Or Dundon, Fundin. That was actually the right name. Huh? But Dundon has been funding the AAF on a week-to-week basis. He never sunk $250 million in. And as of Tuesday, it was reported he has invested $70 million at a $250 million already. That's like in 4 or 5 weeks, which tells you that this is a money hog and everything's just waiting to fall apart anyways. So I think the big thing here is, why did Tom Dundon waste $70 million and pull the plug on the league over basically a silly stare down with the NFLPA? And I think Albert Breer, who's a reporter, offered the best possible explanation, and he says that perception inside the AAF is that Dundon bought a majority stake in the league simply for the gambling app being developed. And, I mean, the gambling app is going to be huge because I think the NFL, the NBA, all those are going to use that. I think this entire league was set up to try out this app, Steve. I think that's why the NFL let them on NFL Network. I think that's why all this stuff was done. I don't think this league was ever supposed to really make it. And I think you guys had, like Bill Polian and them, and Charlie Ebersol, I think had every intention of making this work, but I don't think the powers that be really cared. I think the people that paid the money were paying the money to get the gambling app to see if it would work. And once it did, you no longer need the league because you're going to go out and you're going to sell this gambling app for enough money that you're going to make all your money back.
So essentially, because, yeah, and the question I had for you, which you kind of just already answered, is that, you know, the NFL let them on, the NFL Network and CBS, which are two primary sources of outlay for the NFL. And so I think everybody looked at this and said, okay, the NFL is kind of a little bit behind this. So this whole thing, you think, was set up just to see if they could do sportsbook on football and how it would fly and how it would work.
Yeah, and maybe see if the league would work or not. And if it didn't, you pull the plug. You still tried out the gambling app. Everything's good to go because in the end, it's the AAF is just like the NFL. They don't give two shits about their players. They don't care about their fans. And, there's no reason to believe that the AAF model wasn't sustainable if Dundon was really to put the money in, because the TV ratings still weren't terrible and the crowds were decent. I mean, it was sustainable for the 3 years they said. The problem is this: if it cost him $70 million for 4 weeks, how long was $250 million going to last anyways? And the problem with these leagues is most of the people, when they go in, they think they need a certain amount of money, and they almost always need double what they think they need.
Yeah. I just sent you a real quick text here. So,
I double extra large. You mean XFL?
Yeah.
All right,
XFL.
so
I don't know.
let's go ahead and wrap this up
I don't
first,
know.
because I think this, though. I think that there was the gambling app, which had a lot to do with why this league was even flying, because the AAF is a league that up until about last August or September, most people inside thought that it was a joke, it would never even play. But all of a sudden, you get the gambling app, and they played. I think there's something to be said for that. And I think that Tom Dundon, he had no business running a league like this. And now,
Well,
part
would the league have lasted as long as it did if he didn't put the $70 million he threw into it?
No, but they would have
It
had
wouldn't have lasted as long as it did.
They would have been able to try the gambling league out or the gambling app out for a week, and they knew what was going on there. It must have been working well. That's why he bought in, because what else would make a man that has shown no ability to be able to run a professional sports league to all of a sudden sink $250 million into it? And then if he was really going to do that, why didn't he just put all the money in to begin with, put it all in there, and let this play out? Instead, he went week to week. There's a reason why he would go week to week. And that was because he never had any intention of spending $250 million on this. He just wanted to make sure everything worked the way it needed to. And the saddest thing of all this now is when you go on Twitter and you see all these players who basically are being made to pay to get themselves home.
Home, yeah. GoFundMe accounts to get themselves home, yeah. Yeah, and they really only had one brand name player. I think Manziel was playing for Memphis, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he got hurt within a week or two. And I know Bill Polian's pissed off about this, but like I said, you can see the writing on the wall. I mean, we talked about this. We were supposed to have Michael Waddell from the Apollos on. Yeah. And it's not a shot at Michael Waddell, because Michael Waddell has nothing to do with this. Michael Waddell ran the team.
He was an employee.
He ran the team that was the best team in the league. So he did his job. We're not here to talk anything about him, because I think all of this falls in the end on Tom Dundon. And the fact that a man that just put $70 million into this league over the last 4 or 5 weeks, the fact that he can't pay to get players home is absolute bullshit.
Yeah, $70 million. That could get me a 3,000 square foot home in California. That's about all I could get.
I think it could probably get you bigger than that. But
I don't know. I
yeah,
really don't know.
Sure it could. Let's see.
Where was I going to go? I don't even know where I was going to go. I think that it's a compilation of. I think they were hoping they would get the NFL to fund this league to be a G League, and I use the term G League because it's what the NBA calls it, the Gatorade League, whatever they call it. And the gambling app I was not that familiar with, but that makes a lot of sense too. Do we know how the gambling worked for it? Did it pay off for them?
Oh yeah,
somebody make some money off that at least.
Yeah, I mean, hell, the gambling app is going to pay off when you put it in the NFL, you put it in the NBA, and all that.
They just test ran it all through the AAF and made sure that everything was.
And they were losing a ton of money, so they cut their losses and they got the hell out.
Yeah. Anything else about this league we need to worry about?
No. I mean, there's nothing else that's going to happen. And you ask about the XFL, so when you look at this, I mean,
what is the safe? Yeah, I mean, and again, we have a relationship with the XFL, and we want to, we don't want to speculate on what they're going to do because I think they're taking their time and doing it the right way. Would you agree? They're not starting to come until next year.
Yeah, but I think
$500 million.
$500
million. $500 million, based on the fact that he was going to put 250 in, and put 70 of it in, and didn't make it through the end of the season. Is that even close to enough money to run a league with $500 million and think you're going to make a 3-year commitment to run a league with only $500 million? Now, I did notice the salaries in the AAF were between $70,000 to $100,000 for marquee
which is
players.
Close
I guess
to what the XFL's doing too. But this is the problem I
Yeah.
see with all this. People want to watch big-time college football, or they want to watch the NFL. Now, people don't even want to watch NFL preseason games, Steve.
I agree. Yeah. No, I had season tickets to the Colts for 25 years, 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, did you ever go to a
I didn't-
preseason game?
Oh, probably 10 times in 30 years.
Yeah.
And
how much fun
it
was
was
that?
Not fun at all. No, that's why we stopped going. Yeah, we always gave them away. We'd give them to charities to, auction off for our high school or youth sports league or something like that. Say, here's 4 great seats to the Colts game and things like that. So, no, we never went to preseason games. So, yeah, it's hard. Is there just a thing, Mike, where sports is seasonalized enough that people don't want to watch football out of season?
Well, I think this. The USFL worked for a while until they tried to go up against the NFL. The XFL, if you're not, I think being the NBA G League to the NFL is not the way to make money. Because I don't think too many NBA G League teams make money. Maybe I'm wrong here, maybe they do. But the big difference, we talked about it last night off air, is this. It doesn't cost near as much to put a basketball team on a basketball court in a gym
Right.
that seats 5,000 as it does to take a professional football team or any football team. Hell, it costs more probably to run a high school football program than it does an NBA G League team. If you take away, the flying places, because you don't have the equipment issues or the payment for equipment that you have with football. You don't have the insurance issues with football. You still got workman's comp, but workman's comp's a lot more for football than it is for any other sport. So when you look at it, I still think it's possible to do if it is run completely right. And I think the last chance you ever have to see this possibly work is going to be with the XFL. Now, what the chances are for that, I don't know because I don't know exactly how they're going to run it. But when I look at them a year away from playing, and I look at where the AAF was a year away from playing last year, the AAF had no business playing. They did not have what they needed in place. Like the XFL, you've got, 2-3 years out, they're planning this. You have a better chance. Plus, you had the Bill Polians and the Charlie Ebersols, but I would take Oliver Luck and Vince McMahon over those guys any day.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that knows how to promote something, it's Vince McMahon. He took regionalized professional wrestling and turned it into a huge global entity. Now, I think as long as he doesn't think that he's going to challenge the NFL, I think maybe they can make it work because the other good thing about this folding, and I hate to say this, but I think that you would have had a watered down product big time because there's only so many, especially quarterbacks, that can play at a high level. Now the XFL, you've got a higher level of player there. You're not going to have to compete for players. It's all right there. Because the only other place somebody has to play is indoor or arena football, where you're making anywhere from $50 a game to, with the AFL, maybe $700-800 a game. You can compete against that. Now, the question is, and the only thing that I've questioned with the XFL is the cities that they've decided to play in. Because I still think cities without professional teams is the way to go here. Because we saw it. San Antonio was drawing 25,000 a game at the AAF. And the cities that had pro teams, NFL teams, were really not doing that well. So my question is, if I'm the XFL, do I right now put a team in San Antonio?
Yeah, and it kind of models. We've had Dave Magley on, and who's runs the basketball league, which is a minor league basketball thing, kind of kind of similar to what you were talking about being successful.
Yeah, but see, the thing is this: he's been successful, I think, because he knows his limitations.
Yeah, right. He moved to cities where there was no NBA teams for the most part. There were no NBA teams, and this was the thing to do. And he built his model on an attendance of 1,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 people at a game, using high school gyms, smaller gyms, keeping his costs down. And I followed that league, and they're in the playoffs now, I think, and they're winding down their season. And so far, he's still talking about expansion of the TBL, which is kind of the model that I'm surprised that the AAF didn't follow. That they didn't look at this and say, let's get away from the NFL. Let's go places where the NFL's not and see if there's an interest in professional football in those places. There's plenty of college stadiums that are available, nice ones. And every town has a college pretty much now, somewhere along the lines. And yeah, I think going after the NFL, this is what concerns me a little bit about the XFL with the cities they're choosing to put in. They're kind of wanting to attack the NFL, and I just don't think. I think that's an ugly monster.
I don't think they want to attack the NFL. I think what they've done is they've put teams in cities that have millions of people and assume that they can draw 30,000 of those people. And I think in a place like Dallas, New York, I don't know about New York, but I think Dallas, Houston, Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay has a history. They had the Bucks at the same time you had the Tampa Bay Bandits with Steve Spurrier and Bandit Ball. And my question is, if they haven't signed a coach yet, I think bringing Steve Spurrier back to Tampa Bay would be a slam dunk, and you'd get a crowd for that. Because the people in Tampa still love him, because the Bandits at one point, 84, 85, were drawing damn near as good as what the Buccaneers were doing, because the Buccaneers were atrocious in 84 and 85. And Seattle is a city where, I don't think there's a whole hell of a lot else to do. You don't have an NBA team there anymore. College basketball is not overly huge there. St. Louis is a team that lost their NFL team, so maybe you can sell people, show up here and show the NFL we need a team again. The only cities that I really doubt, because I think they did a pretty good job of picking this, the only thing I doubt is the LA and the New York, because hell, we saw with the LA, the Chargers, even as a playoff team, had a hard time drawing. And the Rams never sold out, but they were getting 70, 75,000 people there. And I just think New York's a city that they want to see the NFL. They want to see Major League Baseball. They don't want to see anything that they considered less of a league. So I think Dallas, Houston, St. Louis, Seattle, Tampa Bay, maybe even D.C., because D.C. hadn't had an NFL team in over a decade. Daniel Snyder sucks, dude.
I just gotta laugh at that.
If Cleveland would have got Baker Mayfield and fired Hugh Jackson and done everything they did, Cleveland could have had a team and probably worked out in the XFL. But yeah, I think the XFL, I think the fact that they're not trying to act like they're a minor league, and I said this from the start, that the acting like a minor league thing and wanting to be a feeder league, people don't want to watch that. I watch the XFL, more likely watch the XFL and the AAF, because I don't want to see a feeder league. I want to see guys that are there to play, guys that have 2 or 3 year contracts. They're going to be there for 2 or 3 years, make a little bit of money, give back to the community. And this is the thing. You're not going to make this work if you're not willing to sustain a loss for at least 3 years. And you're going to sustain a large loss. If you're willing to sustain that loss, in the end, I think this could work somewhere. You've got to be willing to sustain that. There's not many people that have enough money to sustain that. If there's anybody that does, it's Vince McMahon. So I would still give them a shot to make this work. And I think from the start, I thought it had a better shot than the AAF.
Yeah. On paper, I think you're right. But in the end, I think the NFL is such a giant monster that if they want to put their thumb down on you, they're going to put their thumb down on you and stop you. They're going to tell TV contracts, hey, you want to keep the NFL on your network, goodbye. Say goodbye to these people.
It's according what TV contract that the XFL gets and how they're doing it.
Have they even announced that yet? Have they even announced where they are on TV yet?
I don't think they have, but we're going to try to get Oliver on next week. Mark Trestman has been named the XFL Tampa Bay head coach. They need to fire him and get Steve Spurrier. Let's see.
Well, that was my question. You kind of addressed. Was this a good thing for Spurrier? Because there's a name that you hadn't heard in football for a while, and he takes his team 7-1. Does this elevate his status and maybe get him an opportunity in the NFL or something like that?
What was that again? You cut out.
I cut out? I'm sorry. Steve Spurrier may be the golden egg in this whole thing, in that he had the Orlando team at 7-1.
I think Steve Spurrier did this just because. Steve Spurrier likes leagues like this. He coached in the USFL. I don't think it means he's going to make this great comeback because the guy's in his 70s. He's still a hell of a football coach, but this was a team that was going to play for 10 weeks. It wasn't a year-round job. It wasn't something he had to work on 20 hours a day unless he wanted to. So I think Spurrier's done unless an XFL offers him something.
Okay.
So.
All right. I really have nothing else to ask you about this. We kind of covered it all. Anything else you got?
Nah. I got nothing else except we'll be back tomorrow at noon. And once again, we don't know what we're talking about, but something will break, and we'll talk about it. You'll hear it here first.
No, well, we're gonna do Final Four the next 2 days. Thursday and Friday will be Final Four. I'm working on something. I'm gonna make a phone call here as soon as we get off the phone and see if I can get something put together.
We got Poncho Friday, right? Yeah, Poncho Wright
Friday.
from the 1980 National Championship at Louisville Cardinals.
Mm-hmm. And Louisville Cardinals
will be on with us too to discuss the Final Four with Poncho.
So we can talk Iditarod too.
Sure we can. And it is where's the Iditarod ran at, Steve?
It's run in Alaska.
Okay.
I get it.
All right. We need to find a correspondent from Alaska. If there's anybody out there from like Juneau or someplace in Alaska and you want to be the Iditarod reporter for the Grueling Truth, we would love to have you. Just drop us a note at Grueling Truth on Twitter. And we will add you to the staff, and you can cover the Iditarod because Steve, for some reason, loves the Iditarod. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. You can follow Steve Risley at srisley34. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. Anything else, Steve, before we wrap it up?
No. We're going to Bristol, NASCAR racing. You want to talk some NASCAR for a few minutes?
No, I'm good. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. But you can check. You can go to thegruelingtruth.net if you wanted to hear something about NASCAR and listen to Alex Gray and Steve Risley on the NASCAR show. So make sure you check that out on thegruelingtruth.net. Make sure you go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the mybookie.ag banner at the top of the page to get up $1,000 cashback bonus on your first deposit. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster, and I don't want to talk about NASCAR. But you've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.
Speak.